So today we'll create a dub chord setup in the polygrid. It will be relatively beginners friendly. This is what it sounds like in context. As always, I added the ideas from this video to the PDF of tips and tricks I keep on updating. It's available on my Patreon together with the project file from this video and from many other videos. And let's start with our sound source. For now it will be the pulse oscillator, and I would like to control the timbre over time, so I will use a low pass filter. This will be the XP filter. Change this to low pass 4, basically 4 poles. 4 poles means that the filter will be quite aggressive. It will attenuate the upper frequencies even more. For now we don't need resonance, later on we will add a bit. No need for key tracking, but I do want to have control over the levels over time, over the volume. So I will send this to an AD envelope, right, and then to the output. By the way, here at the output I just have an attenuate just to control the levels even more. Now in this case with the AD envelope we have control over the attack and decay times of the sound. We will come back to this later. For now let's start generating chords. Now we will need to set this polygrid to be polyphonic, so we can play multiple notes at once. I will go with, let's say, 10 or 8, doesn't matter really, just so it has enough notes or voices to play all notes at the same time. I have here already a clip ready. You can see I have 2 notes on D, right? So 2 hits. So if I play this, we just get these 2 notes. Let me raise the levels a bit. Right, but now let's turn them into a chord. I know there are countless ways of creating chords in Bitwig. Today we will use the multi-note device and send this through the key filter. Let me stop this for a second. Now the key filter will filter out the notes that are not in the scale. If you're already using Bitwig 6 or watching this in the future, you can skip this step. Since Bitwig 6 we have this new project scale, you can quantize things to the project. But anyway, in this case I will quantize things to D minor, and this means that I can just experiment with the intervals here on the multi-note until I get a chord that I like. Right, so I just play this, I will add another note, let's say 3 steps up, maybe 5, right, or 7. Right, I can just experiment like this because again everything will be in the scale. Let's go maybe with 8. Right, and maybe also with 12, so an octave up. Right, so we have a 5-note chord. Of course, if you know your music theory and you can build chords without the key filter or without the multi-note, you can, you don't have to use this. But this is how we created chord for now. Let's go back to the patch. First of all, what we will do, we'll add another AD envelope that will control the filter. So let me close the filter a bit. Right, the first AD envelope will be amplitude, and the second one will be filter, and it will control the cutoff of the filter. Right, we will have the amplitude with a bit more attack and a bit more decay. And then the filter, again, short attack for now, and a shorter decay. Right? And then it's all the ratio between the envelope times and the modulation amount. Right, we can do something like this. Let's say for now, of course, later we will add modulation and everything. We can add now also some resonance. Right, something like this. Now I will also spread the tuning in the stereo field of this pulse oscillator. Click this plus minus and then start adding some detuning. Right, to spread this, and I will go even a step further and add pitch modulation just to add this wobbly sound. This I will do with the modulators, just not to clutter this patch, right? So I will add an LFO. Doesn't have to be synced to anything, right? It can also be polyphonic, so it will change the pitch per note, right? And then modulate the pitch here. And again, if I make this too much, right? Just a tiny bit, we don't need too much here. Even slower and even a tiny bit less. Right, just to add some movement. Right, this can be, let's name this detune. Right, and now before we add the fun part, the delay, let's add another oscillator for another layer here. I'm going to use the swarm. Now I'm holding Alt on my keyboard, and when I add this and connect it, it will add automatically a mixer. Right, we can take this maybe, let's experiment with an octave down first. It's too low, so maybe an octave up. A bit more spread, just so it's a bit more noisy. Right, again, just to add another texture here. Right, so now we have two oscillators. Also here I will detune this in the stereo field. Maybe even a bit more, something like this. Right, and now let's add the delay. So I will use the mod delay in this case because of a few reasons. First of all, we have here built-in feedback. So we can just add feedback without patching a feedback path. But because we can also use it to add even more movement by modulating the delay times. So first of all, I would like to have control over the delay, over the mix. Of course, you can also use delay externally, but in this case, in the grid, we will do this with the blend module. Now I will do this after the attenuate, just because I want to have more control over the levels, right? So I will use the blend. This will be all the way left, the dry signal, and then a copy of the dry signal will go to the delay and then to the blend, and all the way right, we have just the delay signal, and we have a mix of them. Right, I will leave this with a 3/16, which is basically a dotted eighth. Add some feedback. And now again, by adding modulation to the delay, we can again add some wobbliness to everything. So in this case, I will do this in the patch because we have to connect it here. So I will use an LFO. Right, no need for retriggering, so it will just run freely. Again, we can also unsync it to everything. Let's call this delay. Right, maybe bipolar, so it will modulate the delay time up and down, and then just send this here to the delay input, to the mod input. Again, if I make this too much, right, this is not what we want. We want just a tiny bit of movement. Right, and slower. Right, so also here we have some movement, and we have another thing here on the delay. We have a built-in filter in the feedback loop. So if I take this down, if I close it, this will make the repeats go darker and darker with time. Right, and now we can do a few more things to add even more movement and make this more interesting. We can add a couple of all-pass delays here before the mod delay. Right, so let's do this also in serial. So the signal will go, will go first to the first all-pass delay, then to the second, and then back to the mod delay. Change the delay times, maybe something like this. And then if I take the gain all the way up, right now they are off basically, so just add a tiny bit. Right, again, just for a bit more texture. In context, you don't really hear it, but it adds a bit more texture. maybe something like this. Now we can add also modulation to the filter for extra movement, just to move it up and down a bit. Right, so let's say this is the base point, and then I just hold Control and I copy this detune modulator, and I will change this, call this filter. Right, in this case I don't want it to be polyphonic, I want it to control all notes at once. Also no need to be bipolar, I just want it to take it up from this point. Right, and now let's map it. Maybe a bit quicker, something like this. Right, so we have some movement. We can add even more movement by changing or modulating the attack of the filter envelope. Right, something like this. So again, I hold Control, I copy this. Right, again, no need for polyphony, no need for bipolar. Something like this. Right, again, just for adding movement. Now we can add some sand reverb. I have here Valhalla's Supermassive as a sand reverb. Right, something like this. And listen to this in context. So I'm going to take the level a bit down, add a kick and a bass. Right, the kick is just the V0 kick, and the bass I have here set up with the polysynth and the sub oscillator. Of course, an open hi-hat. I have here some noise with a noise sample. I have here modulated hi-hats. And a pad with a polymer. Right, so this works quite nicely. These chords work quite nicely in context. Right, with the filter movement, with the envelope movement, with the delay. Of course, there are more things we can do with this sound, but this was the basic setup. You can now go and experiment with it some more and expand it even. But that was it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Cheers!